Okay, I'm going to skip around a little bit, so bear with me. It'll come together in a minute. I'm going to start at John 14, verse 14 first. And it says, "If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it." Pause that right there. Go to Isaiah 54, 17. It says that no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against thee, thou shalt condemn. And now I'm going to go to my main thing. My subject for the day is called fearless. It's fear, and then there's a dash, and then there's less. I'm going to Exodus chapter 4, and I'm going to go to verse 10. "And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither herefore nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb or deaf or the seeing or blind? Have I not the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say." We'll start from there. Moses has just got through going to the mountain and seeing the burning bush. And now, after having an encounter with God, I want everybody to notice, first of all, that after you have the encounter, there's always the instruction afterwards. Instruction always comes after encounter. And God is giving Moses instructions and saying, I want you to go and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And the first thing Moses does is he says, God, I am not the man for the job because I'm slow of speech and slow of tongue. In other words, he says, God, I can't do what you told me to do because I have no potential in myself to do it. This is Moses, first of all, is a great leader. But it's amazing to me how a great leader, when he first begins, always tends to doubt himself. And he points out his flaw as if God doesn't know it. And so therefore, many great leaders, because of their insecurity in themselves, become what I like to call wasted potential. But the bad thing about a leader being wasted potential is if a leader wastes his potential, then his flock never reaches potential. Because now he hasn't led anybody. So the question I want to ask you is, are you like Moses? Do you doubt your potential? And if you do doubt your potential, are you thinking about your flock? Are you thinking about who you're going to lead? Because the reason the name of it is fear, and there's a dash and less, because Moses feared that he wouldn't be able to do what God told him to do, and therefore he thought he was less of a man. So now we go to Isaiah 54:17, and it says, "No weapon formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against thee, thou shall condemn." Now, usually when I read this, I'm thinking, yeah, I say your enemies. But I didn't notice until last night that it said every tongue. And although Moses is slow of speech, but he speaks death to himself. So he says, God, I can't speak freedom, but then he speaks slavery to himself, to God, but says, I have a speech problem. But the problem was not he had a speech problem. The problem is he had a speech. The problem is not he had a speech problem. The problem is that Moses didn't know what to speak. So therefore, when God says, tell Pharaoh to let my people go, he can't do it because Moses is used to speaking down on himself. So therefore, he is bound not by the fact that he just found out that he's not an Egyptian, he is in fact a Hebrew. Moses is having an identity crisis within himself because he's saying, how can I be a leader and I've just now found out who I am? And Moses' problem is he didn't know whose he was. Have you ever had an encounter with God but forgot the fact that you are God's property? So Moses, he gives every excuse. Sometimes we give excuse as an exit route. An exit route. When we were on our way here, Pastor Drew stopped to do an oil change, and on the door it said, "This is not an exit." And I looked at it, and as we were driving down the road and we were talking, I kept thinking about, this is not an exit. And in verse 11, God tells Moses, your speech problem is not an exit. It's not an exit for you to get out. As a matter of fact, it's really a door that's opening for you to go in. Because I picked you knowing that you have a flaw. He says, and the Lord said unto him, who hath made man's mouth? I made your mouth. I know you have the flaw. And he even goes on to say, who maketh the dumb? Who maketh the dumb? And then he goes on to say, or deaf, or seeing, or the blind. Have not I the Lord? In other words, he just told Moses, he said, I gave you your mouth. Right now you're being dumb. You're being deaf to my ear, and you're blind. But then he says, after calling Moses all that, he says, now, therefore, go. And I said, well, God, you basically just was very sarcastic with the man and made him feel really stupid. And then you say, now, therefore, go. And I will be with your mouth, and I will teach thee what you shall say. See, what God was trying to show Moses was, Moses said, God, I'm not persuasive enough to do it. And God is like, I know this. That's why it's not you. That's why he says, I will be with your mouth. And then when we go to John, he says, anything you want of the Lord, ask God, and he will do it. So what God is telling Moses is, don't tell me that you have a flaw. Ask me how to use you in spite of your flaw. And then therefore you will be able to lead people into their freedom. And then after you lead them into their freedom, I will lead you. See, the thing is, as I speak, you go. That's why God said, that's why you should ask God to order your steps in his word. Order your steps in his word, because you're not going to be able to see everything all the time. You're not dependent. A leader is never dependent on what he speaks. He's always dependent on what he hears. If you don't hear from God, you cannot lead a people. What if Abraham have not heard God when he said, stop, do not kill Isaac? Oh my God, you kill a nation. So therefore, as a leader, if I'm not able to listen to God, then I cannot lead people because I'm not being led. Everything that, whenever God asks a question, it is always a test. And God doesn't do what he does to most people in most stories. He doesn't ask Moses a question. He says, now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. Now, thinking about this, I would be like, well, God, the suitable thing to do would be to teach him first, and then let him go. And then God was like, well, if I teach him first and then let him go, it still is a none effect, because then he'll have no experience in what he's doing. I have to teach him as he goes. So therefore, you're being taught, you're leading, and experiencing things at the same time. Because before this stuff hits the people, it's always going to hit the leader first. So people watch how you react to this. And so God is telling Moses, I'm not worried about the fact that you can't speak. Your flaw is not an exit. And so what I would tell you guys today is, don't let your inconsistency or what you think you can't do hinder you from being able to do what God tells you to do. In other words, don't be your own worst enemy. You have enough enemies to deal with. You have too many devils to fight, too many giants to fight. You can't, David couldn't knock down Goliath and be Goliath at the same time. If there are two people that are always going to be on your side, it has to be God and yourself. Because you can't waste time fighting yourself and knocking down other giants, and then you can't waste time fighting yourself, because the biggest battle you will ever have, because you know what to do when the enemy comes against you. You say, in the name of Jesus, and he will flee. You know what to do when haters comes against you. You just ignore them because God will take care of them. You know what to do when it comes to get a blessing. But when it comes to having faith and believing in yourself and believing in the God that called you, now we have an issue. Because before you lead the people, you must first lead yourself to follow God. So now I'll leave you with the thought. Do you hear the voice of God? And when you hear the voice of God, do you react and move? Or do you continue to stay sick and be deaf, dumb, and blind? And the whole outcome of the message is God is saying, I don't want you to be fearless. I want you to be fear-proof. Are you fear-proof?